On a calm and ordinary afternoon, in a quiet neighborhood, a 3-year-old boy named Liam found himself alone. The sun was shining, the birds were chirping, and the world around him seemed peaceful. However, Liam's world was different from most. Born blind, he had never seen the faces of his parents or the beauty of nature that many children take for granted. For Liam, his surroundings were a blur of sounds, smells, and sensations that guided him through his day-to-day life. His other senses, his hearing, touch, and smell, became more attuned to the world, but his inability to see left him reliant on those around him and the sounds that echoed through his environment. Liam's parents, aware of his blindness, had always been careful and protective. They did everything they could to ensure that their son was safe, comfortable, and never alone in situations where he might find himself in danger. It had always been their priority to make sure that the house was safe, that there were no obstacles for Liam to bump into, and that any time they stepped out, there was a trusted neighbor or relative nearby to keep an eye on him. But this time, things were different. For a brief moment, they thought it would be fine to leave him outside while they quickly ran to a neighbor's house to gather a few things. Liam, eager to play, had been enjoying his time in the yard, feeling the soft grass beneath his small feet and listening to the wind rustling through the trees. But without sight to guide him, the world could feel like an unpredictable and uncertain place. It only took a second for the situation to take a turn. While playing, Liam, unaware of his surroundings, tripped. He stumbled forward, and before he knew it, he had fallen into a narrow drainage ditch that ran along the side of the yard. The ditch wasn't deep, but it was deep enough to cause a child of his size to struggle. And without sight, the situation became much worse. The sensation of falling, the sudden shift in the ground beneath him, made Liam's heart race with fear. He felt the walls of the ditch surrounding him, the coldness of the earth beneath his hands. His breathing quickened, panic setting in as he realized that he couldn't get out. He didn't understand exactly where he was or how to climb out. His hands grasped for anything that might help him find his way back to safety, but all he could feel were the rough edges of the ditch and the dirt that clung to his small fingers. With no way of knowing what had happened or what to do, Liam began to cry. His sobs echoed in the empty yard, a mix of fear and frustration. He didn't know what to do or where to turn. The boy's cries were soft at first, tentative, unsure if anyone could hear him. But as the seconds turned into minutes, his desperation grew. He cried louder, his small voice carrying through the air, hoping against hope that anyone would come to his aid. But there was no one nearby. The neighborhood was quiet with no neighbors in sight. His parents had only just stepped out a short while ago, and it seemed as though the world had forgotten about him. For a brief moment, Liam felt utterly alone, as if the darkness of his blindness had swallowed him entirely. His small voice grew hoarse from the effort of crying, his throat tightening as the minutes dragged on, with no sign of rescue. Liam's sense of time, of course, was different from that of someone who could see the clock ticking away. To him, it felt as though hours had passed. His tears were relentless, his hope fading. He had never been in a situation like this before, and the isolation he felt, despite being in his own backyard, made him feel as though there was no escape. The world around him, which he already experienced as a place of uncertainty, now felt like an even scarier, more unforgiving place. His cries had become louder now, more desperate. Liam reached out, his arms flailing in all directions, seeking some kind of support, something to hold on to. But the walls of the ditch remained unyielding. With no visual cues, he couldn't tell where the edge was or where the land might have sloped in a way that would allow him to escape. His body began to tremble as his fear grew, and in that moment, the boy wished for one thing: someone to hear him, someone to come and rescue him from this dark, frightening place. As he continued to cry, hoping that someone, his parents or a friendly neighbor, would hear him, there was a rustling sound in the distance. At first, Liam didn't notice it over the sound of his own cries, but then the rustling grew louder, closer. His ears perked up at the sound of paws softly padding against the grass. A curious but cautious noise echoed in the stillness. The sound was unfamiliar to Liam. He couldn't see it, of course, but the noise was becoming more defined, and something in his gut told him that this could be the help he so desperately needed. Could this be the sound of someone coming to his rescue? As the sound grew nearer, Liam stilled. He paused his crying, trying to focus on the noise. He could hear it now more clearly. Soft steps, the sound of something or someone moving through the grass toward him. It wasn't a person. It wasn't his parents. It was something else, something unfamiliar. Liam's heart raced again, but this time it wasn't out of fear. There was something about the sound that made him feel cautious, yes, but also a flicker of hope. Perhaps it was just an animal, he thought. Maybe it was a dog or a cat, something that would come to check on him. Whatever it was moving closer, and it had stopped right near the edge of the ditch. Liam could feel a change in the air, as though the presence of whatever was there had altered the world around him. Then, without warning, a soft nudge came to his face, followed by a warm, wet lick. He had no idea who or what it was, but it wasn't frightening. The gentle touch against his skin felt oddly comforting. It wasn't harsh or threatening. It was a familiar sensation, something soft, something that gave him a sense of calm. Liam reached out, instinctively touching the creature that was now so close to him. His tiny hand brushed against something soft, and he recognized it as fur. His first thought was that it must be a dog. He could feel its warmth, the way it moved with a certain purpose, as though it was trying to communicate with him. The dog didn't bark. It didn't growl. Instead, it nudged Liam once again, pushing him gently as if urging him to do something. Liam, in his confused and frightened state, wasn't sure what to do, but something about the dog's actions was soothing. There was a calmness in the way it approached him, and in that moment, Liam instinctively knew that this animal was not there to hurt him. Though Liam couldn't see the dog, he felt an overwhelming sense of relief, as if the presence of this animal meant that he was no longer alone in the world. The dog's warmth seemed to wrap around him, and he felt a surge of hope. Maybe he wouldn't have to suffer alone in the dark. Maybe help had truly arrived. What would happen next would defy expectations, as this stray dog, in a moment of kindness and instinct, would go on to do something incredible, something that would change both their lives forever. What happened next was something that no one could have predicted, something that would not only save Liam but prove just how incredible the bond between a human and an animal could be. This was only the beginning. As the dog lingered at the edge of the ditch, Liam, still trying to make sense of the situation, felt a mixture of confusion and hope. The gentle nudge from the animal had startled him at first, but now there was something comforting about its presence. It wasn't just the warmth that emanated from the dog's body, but the quiet confidence it seemed to exude. There was an unspoken understanding between them, as if the dog knew exactly what Liam needed, even if the boy himself didn't fully understand it yet. In that moment, Liam's frantic crying subsided, replaced by a quiet sense of curiosity and a strange, growing trust. The dog, whose fur was matted and unkempt, had been wandering the neighborhood for some time, a stray who had seen more of the hardships of life than any creature should have to endure. He was no longer a young pup, but an adult dog who had learned to fend for himself, scavenging for food, shelter, and companionship in a world that had largely abandoned him. Despite this, there was something different about this moment, something that made the dog pause in his wandering and direct his attention to the boy in need. Max, as the dog would later come to be known, wasn't just roaming the streets aimlessly this time. Something inside him seemed to shift, as if his very instincts were telling him that there was a reason he had come to this particular yard, to this particular moment. He had been used to being alone, accustomed to navigating the harsh realities of street life. He was cautious, often avoiding contact with humans because of past experiences where people had been cruel, dismissive, or indifferent. But there was something about Liam's cries, something in the desperation that echoed through the boy's voice, that compelled Max to approach. The dog hadn't been trained in any formal way, nor had he ever been a service animal, but in that moment, It was as if he understood what needed to be done. He wasn't just a stray wandering aimlessly through the world. He was a creature driven by a sense of compassion, even if he hadn't experienced much kindness himself. Max's approach to Liam was gentle and tentative, a quiet recognition of the boy's vulnerability. The dog didn't bark or lunge at Liam. Instead, he crouched low and moved slowly, as if sensing the boy's trepidation. Liam could feel the dog's presence even before he could understand what was happening. His heightened senses of hearing and touch picked up on the soft padding of paws against the ground, the rustling of fur against the air, and the subtle changes in the space around him. He extended his hand, guided by the sound of the dog's movements. When his fingers brushed against the warm fur, he instinctively pulled back, surprised by the feeling, but not frightened. Instead of shying away, the boy felt a flicker of hope, a quiet realization that whatever this was, it wasn't meant to harm him. Max, with a quiet yet determined motion, gently nudged Liam's face. The dog's nose was cold and moist, but it was a touch that strangely enough offered more comfort than fear. Liam instinctively reached out, guided by the warmth and softness of the dog's fur. He could feel the way the dog moved, the way it nudged him, as if trying to tell him that he wasn't alone, that he wasn't stuck in this dark place forever. It wasn't just a random act of kindness. Max had a purpose. It was almost as if the dog knew exactly what Liam needed, what would help him escape the terrifying uncertainty of his situation. Max didn't bark, didn't pull away, and didn't try to scare Liam. Instead, he continued to nudge the boy gently, moving closer and closer, until Liam's hand met the dog's side. It was an unexpected moment of connection, something that transcended the typical relationship between a person and a pet. Max wasn't just there to comfort Liam. He seemed to understand that the boy needed more than just emotional support. He needed a way out of the ditch. For a moment, the two of them were simply still, as if allowing the connection to form between them. Max's quiet presence seemed to calm Liam's racing heart, while Liam's touch reassured the dog that this wasn't a threat. It was as though, in that moment, the world stood still. But then, in an unexpected move, the dog did something that truly left Liam stunned. Max, as if intuitively knowing what was needed, stepped back. His paws were light on the earth, but the weight of the decision he was about to make was not lost on him. He moved away from the ditch, disappearing from Liam's immediate reach. For a brief moment, the boy felt a pang of confusion. Was the dog leaving? Had it gotten distracted? But then he heard the soft sound of Max's paws moving through the grass again, and soon the dog returned, this time with something in his mouth. Liam's senses picked up on the sound of a stick being gently placed near him. The dog had returned, and in his mouth was a long, sturdy branch. Max, without hesitation, placed the stick by Liam's side, his body crouched as he waited for the boy to take notice. It wasn't just a gesture of kindness, it was an offering. The dog wasn't simply providing comfort anymore. He was offering a lifeline, something tangible that could help Liam escape the trap he found himself in. Liam, unsure at first, reached out cautiously. His small hand closed around the stick, and as he grasped it, a new sense of purpose filled him. He realized what Max was trying to do. The stick wasn't just a random object. It was the key to getting him out of the ditch. With trembling fingers, Liam used the stick for leverage, trying to position it in such a way that he could lift himself out of the dirt and climb to safety. The stick gave him just enough strength to push himself up, one movement at a time, with Max standing by him, as if watching over him, guiding him through the process. The struggle was not easy. Liam's small body was still fragile, and his lack of sight made everything more difficult. But with the dog's help, the task became less daunting. Max stayed close, his presence steady and unyielding, even as Liam tried again and again to pull himself up. Max didn't leave. He didn't grow impatient. He stayed there, patient and unflinching, waiting until Liam finally managed to use the stick to help himself climb out of the ditch. When Liam finally made it out, pulling himself with Max's guidance, he stood there for a moment, catching his breath. He couldn't see the world around him, but he could feel it in his bones. He could feel the soft earth beneath him, the breeze in the air, and the warmth of the dog by his side. There was something profoundly life-changing about that moment. It wasn't just about escaping a physical trap. It was about realizing that someone, or rather something, had cared enough to help him when he was at his most vulnerable. Max had not only saved him from the ditch, but the dog had also given him something much more valuable: hope. Liam turned to the dog, his small hands outstretched, and this time when he reached for Max, there was no hesitation. He knew this was no ordinary animal. This was his rescuer, his protector, his new friend. The connection between them had formed in the most extraordinary way, and it wasn't just about the dog saving him from a ditch. It was about the bond they had built, one that transcended words, one that was formed through quiet acts of compassion and empathy. Max, for his part, didn't need any words of gratitude. He didn't need a pat on the head or a reward. He was simply content to stay by Liam's side. He had done what was needed, and in return, he had found a companion, someone who would love him and care for him, someone who would be there for him, just as he had been there for Liam. The boy, still in awe of the dog's actions, reached out again, this time to give Max a gentle pat on his back. It was a simple gesture, but one that spoke volumes. Liam had been in a terrifying situation, trapped and helpless, but in that moment, he had found an unlikely hero. And Max, the stray dog, had become more than just an animal. He had become a symbol of loyalty, love, and the deep bond that can exist between creatures, no matter their background or circumstances. It wasn't the end of their story, not by a long shot. It was only the beginning. What had started as a moment of crisis had transformed into a relationship that would change both their lives in ways neither could have anticipated. The days that followed Liam's escape from the ditch marked the beginning of something truly remarkable. What began as an unexpected and life-changing encounter between a blind child and a stray dog soon blossomed into a deep and unbreakable bond. Max, the dog who had appeared out of nowhere, had not only rescued Liam from a potentially dangerous situation, but he had also become a permanent fixture in the boy's life. The connection between them grew stronger each day as the two of them navigated the world together in a way that no one could have predicted. For Liam, the presence of Max was not just a comfort, it became essential to his daily life. As a blind child, Liam relied on his other senses to understand and interact with the world around him. His hearing, his sense of touch, and his ability to detect changes in the air and the sounds around him had always been his primary tools for navigation. But having Max by his side added a new layer of security and confidence. Max, who had experienced the world through his own unique struggles as a stray dog, seemed to understand Liam's needs in ways that no one else could. From the moment Max became a part of their family, he took on the role of a constant companion. The dog would walk alongside Liam through the yard, guiding him gently through obstacles and helping him find his way. At first, Max would nudge Liam with his nose when he felt the boy was about to stumble or walk into something. But it didn't take long for Liam to develop an almost instinctive understanding of Max's movements and cues. They began to move in harmony, as if they were connected by an invisible thread that tied their actions together. Max's presence was particularly invaluable when it came to helping Liam explore the world outside their home. The backyard, which was once a familiar but somewhat limiting space, soon became a place of adventure and discovery. Max was always there, a steady and reassuring guide, whether they were playing with toys, feeling the grass between their fingers, or simply enjoying the warmth of the sun together. The two of them developed an unspoken rhythm. Liam would extend his hand and Max would nudge it, leading him toward whatever new thing he wanted to explore. As the days turned into weeks, Liam's confidence grew. With Max at his side, the world didn't seem as frightening anymore. The dog's steady, calm presence allowed Liam to trust his surroundings in a way he never had before. The boy began to venture farther from the house, with Max accompanying him on their little explorations. Whether it was walking to the park or simply going for a stroll down the block, Max remained by Liam's side, always alert, always protective. Liam's parents, amazed by the transformation they had witnessed in their son, couldn't help but marvel at the way the two had bonded. At first, they had been hesitant to adopt a stray dog, especially one who had been on his own for so long. They weren't sure how the dog would adapt to a home or how their son would respond to having a new animal in his life. But those concerns had vanished the moment they saw how natural it was for Max and Liam to be together. There was no training, no forced interactions, just an innate understanding between the two. Max had chosen to be Liam's protector and guide, and the boy had reciprocated that love and trust. One of the most heartwarming moments for Liam's parents came when they saw how Max would react whenever Liam was upset or anxious. The dog had an uncanny ability to sense when something was wrong. Whether Liam had a bad day or was feeling frustrated, Max would always be there to offer comfort. The dog would nuzzle Liam's face gently or rest his head on the boy's lap, offering a silent but powerful reassurance. In those moments, Liam found solace in the presence of his canine companion. There were no words needed, no explanations, just a simple act of being there for one another. Max's ability to sense Liam's emotions and respond with such tenderness was a true testament to the depth of their bond. It wasn't just a relationship based on dependency, it was a mutual exchange of care and understanding. As Liam grew more confident and independent, he learned to trust Max even more. He began to explore the world with a newfound sense of adventure, knowing that Max was always there to watch over him. One day, as they were walking together through the neighborhood, Liam's mother noticed a change in her son. They had always taken short walks around the block, but this time Liam was leading the way. He wasn't waiting for Max to guide him. Instead, he was walking confidently, his hand gently resting on the dog's back as they moved forward. It was a small but significant moment. Liam, the child who had once felt so isolated and helpless, was now taking control of his own path. Max was still there, of course, his calm and steady presence providing the assurance that Liam needed. But it was clear that the boy had grown. This newfound independence was a sign of the incredible progress Liam had made, and much of it could be attributed to Max's presence in his life. The dog had given him the courage to explore beyond the confines of his home, to face the world with a sense of confidence that had once seemed impossible. Max had taught Liam not just how to navigate the physical world, but how to trust in himself, how to move forward even when things seemed uncertain. In addition to helping Liam physically, Max had also opened up new emotional pathways for the boy. Before Max, Liam had always been surrounded by the loving care of his parents, but there had always been a sense of isolation. He was different from other children in the neighborhood, and that difference often made him feel disconnected. But with Max, Liam no longer felt alone. The dog didn't care that he couldn't see. Max didn't expect Liam to be like everyone else. Max simply accepted Liam for who he was, and in return, Liam did the same for the dog. The two of them had found something that transcended the limitations of sight and the constraints of the world around them, a deep, genuine connection. Liam's parents could see the change in their son, and they were grateful beyond measure. They had never expected this kind of bond to form between a blind child and a stray dog, but they were overjoyed to see how much it had transformed Liam's life. What had started as a chance encounter had blossomed into a life-altering relationship that had given Liam a sense of freedom, purpose, and joy. They were also grateful for the way Max had settled into their family, proving that even a stray dog, one with no home or family of his own, could become an integral and beloved part of theirs. As the weeks turned into months, Liam's bond with Max continued to deepen. They shared moments of quiet companionship, exploring the world together and learning from one another. Max's instincts were invaluable, guiding Liam through the neighborhood and helping him navigate the challenges of daily life. At the same time, Liam's trust and love for Max allowed the dog to flourish in ways he had never experienced before. Max was no longer just a stray. He was a cherished member of the family, a hero in his own right. Max had given Liam more than just companionship. He had given him a new sense of possibility, a new way of experiencing the world. Liam had learned that the world was not a place to be feared, but a place to explore and embrace. And with Max by his side, Liam knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he would always have a friend to help him face them. Max had proven, time and time again, that love and loyalty could transcend any obstacle, and in the process he had changed Liam's life forever. As the months passed, Max and Liam's bond continued to grow stronger. It was as if the two were two halves of a whole, their connection deeper than either of them could fully express. Max had become Liam's guide, his protector, and his constant companion. What had begun as a simple act of rescue had blossomed into a life-changing relationship, and the transformation in Liam was something no one could deny. One of the most heartwarming moments for Liam's parents came when they saw how Max would react whenever Liam was upset or anxious. The dog had an uncanny ability to sense when something was wrong. Whether Liam had a bad day or was feeling frustrated, Max would always be there to offer comfort. The dog would nuzzle Liam's face gently or rest his head on the boy's lap, offering a silent but powerful reassurance. In those moments, Liam found solace in the presence of his canine companion. There were no words needed, no explanations, just a simple act of being there for one another. Max's ability to sense Liam's emotions and respond with such tenderness was a true testament to the depth of their bond. It wasn't just a relationship based on dependency, it was a mutual exchange of care and understanding. As Liam grew more confident and independent, he learned to trust Max even more. He began to explore the world with a newfound sense of adventure, knowing that Max was always there to watch over him. One day, as they were walking together through the neighborhood, Liam's mother noticed a change in her son. They had always taken short walks around the block, but this time Liam was leading the way. He wasn't waiting for Max to guide him. Instead, he was walking confidently, his hand gently resting on the dog's back as they moved forward. It was a small but significant moment. Liam, the child who had once felt so isolated and helpless, was now taking control of his own path. Max was still there, of course, his calm and steady presence providing the assurance that Liam needed. But it was clear that the boy had grown. This newfound independence was a sign of the incredible progress Liam had made, and much of it could be attributed to Max's presence in his life. The dog had given him the courage to explore beyond the confines of his home, to face the world with a sense of confidence that had once seemed impossible. Max had taught Liam not just how to navigate the physical world, but how to trust in himself, how to move forward even when things seemed uncertain. In addition to helping Liam physically, Max had also opened up new emotional pathways for the boy. Before Max, Liam had always been surrounded by the loving care of his parents, but there had always been a sense of isolation. He was different from other children in the neighborhood, and that difference often made him feel disconnected. But with Max, Liam no longer felt alone. The dog didn't care that he couldn't see. Max didn't expect Liam to be like everyone else. Max simply accepted Liam for who he was, and in return, Liam did the same for the dog. The two of them had found something that transcended the limitations of sight and the constraints of the world around them, a deep, genuine connection. Liam's parents could see the change in their son, and they were grateful beyond measure. They had never expected this kind of bond to form between a blind child and a stray dog, but they were overjoyed to see how much it had transformed Liam's life. What had started as a chance encounter had blossomed into a life-altering relationship that had given Liam a sense of freedom, purpose, and joy. They were also grateful for the way Max had settled into their family, proving that even a stray dog, one with no home or family of his own, could become an integral and beloved part of theirs. As the weeks turned into months, Liam's bond with Max continued to deepen. They shared moments of quiet companionship, exploring the world together and learning from one another. Max's instincts were invaluable, guiding Liam through the neighborhood and helping him navigate the challenges of daily life. At the same time, Liam's trust and love for Max allowed the dog to flourish in ways he had never experienced before. Max was no longer just a stray. He was a cherished member of the family, a hero in his own right. Max had given Liam more than just companionship. He had given him a new sense of possibility, a new way of experiencing the world. Liam had learned that the world was not a place to be feared, but a place to explore and embrace. And with Max by his side, Liam knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he would always have a friend to help him face them. Max had proven, time and time again, that love and loyalty could transcend any obstacle, and in the process he had changed Liam's life forever. As the months passed, Max and Liam's bond continued to grow stronger. It was as if the two were two halves of a whole, their connection deeper than either of them could fully express. Max had become Liam's guide, his protector, and his constant companion. What had begun as a simple act of rescue had blossomed into a life-changing relationship, and the transformation in Liam was something no one could deny. Liam, once a boy who was isolated from much of the world due to his blindness, now walked with confidence, holding Max's leash as they made their way through the neighborhood. With Max by his side, Liam's world had expanded. He could now explore areas that had once felt daunting and foreign. The dog's steady presence, his gentle guidance, and the comforting weight of his fur against Liam's hand made everything feel more manageable, more predictable. Max had shown Liam that there was a world beyond the confines of their home, one that could be filled with discovery, adventure, and joy. Liam's parents watched this transformation with a mixture of awe and gratitude. They had always known that their son was a special child, but they hadn't realized just how much he was capable of until Max had come into their lives. They had always been careful to shield Liam from the dangers and challenges of the world, but with Max's help, they began to see that their son was more capable than they had thought. He didn't need to be coddled or overly protected. What Liam needed was the space and support to grow, to experience the world, and to learn how to navigate it on his own terms. Max's impact on Liam's emotional well-being was just as profound as his effect on his physical life. Before Max, Liam had always been aware of his blindness. He had learned to accept it as a part of who he was. But there had always been a sense of longing, an ache that he couldn't quite articulate. He had often felt different, separate from the other children he saw playing and interacting with the world around them. But with Max, that sense of difference began to fade. The dog didn't treat Liam as different. He treated him with the same loyalty, respect, and love that he would give any human. Max didn't care about Liam's blindness. To the dog, Liam was just his friend, his companion, and he would do anything to ensure Liam's safety and happiness. This unconditional acceptance made all the difference for Liam. Max's actions spoke louder than words. When Liam was struggling to find his way through a new path or facing an obstacle that seemed too large to overcome, Max would stand by him, offering silent support. It wasn't just physical guidance, it was emotional reassurance. The dog had a way of calming Liam's fears, offering him a sense of stability in a world that could sometimes feel overwhelming. Whether it was a comforting nudge with his nose or simply lying down beside Liam when he was feeling anxious, Max provided a sense of peace that Liam had never experienced before. In many ways, Max had become Liam's emotional anchor. Before the dog arrived, Liam had often felt anxious in unfamiliar situations. Whether it was being in a crowded place or encountering a new environment, he had always relied on his parents to guide him through. But with Max by his side, Liam began to develop a new sense of self-assurance. He no longer felt the need to be constantly protected. With Max's steady presence, Liam realized that he could handle the challenges that life threw his way. He had a companion who understood him better than anyone else, a friend who would be there for him no matter what. As time went on, Liam began to grow more independent. He started to take on new challenges, no longer relying on others to guide him as much. He wanted to try new things on his own, to step out of his comfort zone. And with Max by his side, he felt ready to face whatever came his way. It was clear that the boy was thriving in ways that he hadn't before. The world that had once felt limiting and overwhelming was now full of possibilities. Max had helped Liam see that he could navigate it on his own terms, with confidence and courage. The bond between Liam and Max was not just one of companionship, but of mutual understanding. They had both experienced hardship and uncertainty, and they had learned to rely on each other in ways that no one else could. Liam had learned from Max the importance of patience and empathy. The dog, despite his own rough past as a stray, never grew impatient with Liam's needs. He never gave up on him. Instead, he offered a steady, unwavering presence, always ready to offer guidance, comfort, or simply companionship. Max, too, had benefited from their relationship. Though he had spent years on the streets, learning to fend for himself and survive, he had never known a bond quite like the one he shared with Liam. The dog had been through a lot in his life. He had learned to survive on his own, had seen the worst of humanity, and had been abandoned by those who were supposed to care for him. But with Liam, Max had found something different. He had found unconditional love, a relationship that was built on trust and respect. In return for his loyalty and guidance, Max received a love and care that he had never experienced before. No longer was he a stray dog. He had found a family who accepted him, who cherished him, and who saw him not as a stray but as an irreplaceable member of the household. Liam's parents saw the change in Max, too. The dog, who had once been a loner, now showed a level of affection and attachment that was nothing short of remarkable. He had come into their lives as a stray, untrusting of humans, and yet he had become an integral part of their family. Max was no longer the dog that had roamed the streets, looking for food and shelter. He had found something far more important. He had found a purpose. His purpose was to be Liam's guide, to be his protector, and to offer him a love and companionship that could never be replaced. The lessons that both Max and Liam had learned from each other were invaluable. Liam had learned the importance of trust and independence, and Max had learned to rely on someone else and experience the love and care of a family. Together, they had formed an unbreakable bond, a friendship that defied expectations and proved that sometimes the most unlikely relationships can be the most transformative. As the years went on, Max and Liam continued to grow together. The dog remained a steady presence in Liam's life, and the boy, now older and more confident, had become a young man who knew the world was full of opportunities that he could face head-on with Max by his side. The once timid child had blossomed into someone who was ready to face life with courage and determination, all thanks to the loyal and loving dog who had stepped into his life at just the right moment. The story of Liam and Max became an inspiration to those who knew them. It wasn't just about a blind child being helped by a dog. It was about the power of love, loyalty, and connection. It was about the way two seemingly different beings could come together and create something truly extraordinary. Max had been the catalyst for Liam's transformation, but it was their love and bond that had carried them through every obstacle they faced. Looking back on that fateful day when Max had appeared out of nowhere, no one could have predicted the impact the dog would have on Liam's life. It wasn't just about rescuing him from a ditch. It was about rescuing Liam from a life of limitation and fear and opening up a world of possibilities that he had never imagined before. And through it all, Max had remained by his side, proving that sometimes the greatest gifts in life come from the most unexpected sources. Max and Liam's story is one of unconditional love and remarkable transformation. It's a reminder that sometimes all it takes is one act of kindness to change a life forever. And in the case of Liam and Max, that act of kindness not only changed their lives, it saved them both.